on leadership development, okay? So the overall risk assessment is low. Just make sure that you are aware of any trips, slips, or falls. And I have 2 exits right here, so make sure you're aware of that, just in case, okay? And we have a restroom right there in the corner. Make sure if you need to utilize that, make sure you do that quietly so people that are taking notes can take notes and be okay with that. And in the event of an active shooter, make sure that we run, hide, fight in that order, okay? Overall is unclassified, so make sure you know that, and you can take pictures if you need to reference for later. Agenda for today, it's gonna be an introduction, why leadership development is important, and why leaders do what they do, and what derails most leaders. What causes a lot of new E5s, such as ourselves, to be in that situation, because as a new leader, it can be frightening to some people, right? Because it can tend to derail us in the event of being that new role, the new responsibility of a new leader. So we're gonna be talking about what makes a great leader and what derails most leaders. And characters and attributes that make a great leader, okay? We're gonna be discussing 4 of those in this brief, and then we'll be going over a summary. So leadership development is critical in the United States Army. We can think of many ways of why it's critical. The world is constantly changing. If we look back at 2010 Army, how much different it was back then. If we look at basic leaders course back then, how much it's changed. If we look at like the fact that how we used to do FTX, we used to do land navigation, just the fact how much of a progression there has been in the United States Army in general. So that's what we're going to touch upon. Leaders provide clarity and direction. So that's extremely important when we're doing leadership development. Why do we do leadership development, right? Leadership development, it's providing clarity and a vision for our soldiers, because as our job as new leaders, that is what we're going to be doing. Leaders have a growth mindset. They are constantly searching for ways to improve themselves, now especially for their soldiers as well. And as well as our cadre here that are teaching us, they're looking for ways to improve the school. They want to, just like how they said in the beginning, it's important that we give them that feedback. An effective leader understands what it means to be a follower as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The world is constantly changing, right? We just talked about that. Leaders constantly face adversity. So leadership development is critical. And if we're not applying it in our daily tasks, just like how we are in this school, then how is the United States Army going to be progressing? Leadership development provides the leader skills to accomplish the mission and care for soldiers. So how do they do it? What creates a good leader, and what derails leaders on their new journey? Some of us already have the rank of sergeant in this room, but we are also developing ourselves. We need to create that so we can go back to our units and apply the knowledge that we've learned from here. So how do they do it, and what derails most leaders? So desire. Desire is the starting point of all achievement. Many people tend to overlook this when it's really the simplest fact that in order to be a good leader, you woke up this morning and you said, I'm going to put on this uniform and I'm going to go back to my unit and I'm going to square away my soldiers. I'm going to make sure that I'm a good leader. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to shave. I'm going to do these things because I have the desire to be a good leader. That's the starting point of being a good leader. So there's a great quote I have by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was an American essayist. There's nothing capricious in nature, and the implanting of a desire indicates that the gratification is in the constitution of the creature that feels it. The creature that feels it. So, in other words, you, the person that you woke up as today, you have the desire to be a leader. So you wouldn't have the desire to be a good NCO or a good soldier if you didn't have that in your mind. So ask yourself these questions. How am I going to wake up today? How would the leader of today's army, how would that good squared away leader handle these things, right? So if we're asking ourselves these questions, it's vital because we're thinking about it. Even if we look at our cadre, how would Sergeant Vigil handle this? How would he lead his soldiers? How would Sergeant Daniels handle this? How would Sergeant Stokes handle this as a new E5? So we need to be asking ourselves these questions, right? Because it's going to put ourselves in that mindset. A lot of soldiers have leadership potential. There's this one thing that prevents us from doing that. It's a 4-letter word called fear. So we're going to talk about some critical characters and attributes that make a great leader. Form. What's one way that we can ask ourselves and our soldiers to get to know them better? Connecting. Connecting is super vital. That's like one of the first things that we learn in BLC. Connecting with our soldiers, getting to know our soldiers. We're gonna ask them questions like family. What do you have any kids? Do you have a family? Where do you come from? Asking genuine questions. Occupation, career goals. Does your soldier want to be a team leader? Does your soldier want to be a first sergeant? Does he want to be a sergeant major? What are your soldiers' career goals? That's very critical to know because it gives us that upper hand to know and give direction to that soldier. Recreation, we're not robots, right? What does your soldier like to do? What does he like to do for fun outside of drill, outside of active duty? Maybe he likes to play the guitar. Maybe he likes to sing. Getting these little bits of information are critical, especially when we're trying to get to know our soldiers. Motivation, what motivates your soldier to get up in the morning? Is it simply just putting on the uniform? Because I know for me, when I put on this uniform, I feel motivated. When you're trying to get to know your soldiers better, use form. Many people listen to respond, not to understand. I'm going to say it again. Many people listen to respond, not to understand. How many of us can actually relate to that, right? So it is our duty to listen and to get to understand your soldiers. Not just half-assing it. For example, hey, Gonzalez, so what's up? What do you got here? We need to be genuine with our soldiers. How am I going to get to know this person? I'm going to take time out of my day to get to know them. Initiative. We're going to be talking about initiative as our next character and attribute. Doing the right thing in the absence of orders. For example, hip pocket training. Super critical. We all can understand, especially as National Guardsmen. I can't really understand the fact that active duty, I know it's a little bit different, but as National Guardsmen, we all have that time in the day where it's like, oh, we're absolutely not doing jack, right? So hip pocket training. For example, I'm an infantryman, so do my soldiers understand Battle Drill 1 Alpha? Do they understand their battle drills? Do they understand how to put their pro mask on? Right? So MOS competency. What is your soldier? What's your MOS that you can fulfill that need? Ensure soldiers have the training schedule. I mean, so some of us just go to drill and don't even know what we're doing. Just making sure that they know what they're doing. Make study cards. I was on deployment and one of my leaders had provided this example and I loved it. So 9-line, simple tasks that we do on a daily basis in the Army that we can train on. Keep it right here. Just make little study cards, laminate them, boom. Answer questions. Who remembers when you first joined the Army, how important it is to ask questions? Asking questions and answering them. Delegate the responsibility when you finally get to that level, because as a leader, we want to progress the Army. We don't want to just keep our soldiers down, and not that they ever are down, but we want to be able to push them forward and delegate that responsibility and train future leaders to progress in the United States Army. So the most effective leaders practice humility. So there's two sides, growth mindset and a fixed mindset. One is positive and one is negative. So one is open to opportunity and the other is closed off. not allowing questions and answers. Their mind is open to constructive criticism. A statement closes the mind, and a question opens the mind. So for example, how can I train my leaders better? How can I train my soldiers better? What can I do to improve the overall unit cohesion? And last but not least, the non-commissioned officer takes ownership of the good and the bad. Ownership. For example, if one of my soldiers NDs his weapon, that's my fault, not his fault. Most people would look at that and say, oh, well, Johnson did this. No, that's my fault. We're going to train on that. We're going to be able to make sure that I'm training my soldier weapon on safe, weapon on safe, weapon on safe. Make sure we're doing these things and take ownership, because that's going to earn respect from your soldiers. That concludes the brief. Do I have any questions?
Do you think a leader that has a fixed mindset can change to a growth mindset?
Yes.
How?
Well, personal development, right? Leadership development. It can all start with just changing your mindset. It could be a piece of information. Maybe they're just surrounding themselves with the wrong people. So once they just put that foot forward and be like, all right, maybe just a flash in the mind can just happen like that. I've seen it happen many times. I've actually seen that happen a lot of times. It's crazy. Anybody else? All right, if there's no more questions at this time, I would like to bring up Sergeant Guereca on conflict management. Give him a round of applause.